Hi, this is Whitfield Athey with Delta Data. Thank you for joining us for our webinar today, Technology Platforms Supporting Remote Workforce and Asset Management Distribution Oversight. Joining us for this webinar today is Mike Mastrioni, Director of Fund Operations for Thornburg Investment Management. Throughout the webinar, please feel free to use the chat feature to ask questions, and we will try to respond to them either via chat or we will respond to them directly at the end of the webinar.
Mike, you want to talk a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Yeah, Whitfield, thank you very much for having me. My name is Mike Mastriani. I'm the Director of Fund Operations at Thornburg Investment Management. Thornburg is a $38 billion asset manager located in Santa Fe. About 250 employees have been around since 1982. I've been at Thornburg for just about a year and spent my career working at a few other asset managers and working a little bit on the service side.
You know, as you guys are growing very quickly right now, Mike, I think that it's key, the insight you can provide as your employees are constantly being groomed for and matriculated into their next role. You know, that loss of knowledge that you're having to train into the next generation, and also as you're growing so quickly, keeping all the data in one place. So as new employees come on board, there's a place to train and a place to focus them. But importantly, in this new normal, as we're sharing work roles, I know we are at Delta Data, we're starting to cover multiple roles with singular personnel. Love to hear your thoughts today on how the software helps enable these types of advanced operational execution modes and how Thornburg's benefiting from that underlying platform. And also, I think you provide unique insight. You've been a great client of Delta Data through the years, but how Thornburg at $38 billion and growing is finding valuable usage and the collaboration between our teams to make our software suite highly applicable and very usable by a firm the size of Thornburg's, because that's new to us at Delta Data. Historically, our asset management products have targeted the very large asset managers, and that was just by where we started. It wasn't any strategy we had, but I think you're going to be able to provide some unique insight as to how Thornburg at $38 billion still finds good efficiencies.
Absolutely. You know, certainly the industry in and of itself is going through a paradigm shift, and certainly Thornburg, the same way. As I alluded to, we only have 250 employees across the entire organization. So we run really lean as an organization. So as you described, you know, we are experiencing some growth, and with that requires us to be nimble and also us to hire and retain top talent throughout the industry. One of the objectives that we have within our team is, you know, our team has been asked to take on more as the industry has continued to evolve. You know, items, you know, such as invoice reconciliation, you know, the SEC mandating oversight for intermediaries in a different way. There's been a slew of regulation that has come across that our team has been asked to take on some of those responsibilities. If you look back when I started my career, a lot of these roles were processing roles, and, you know, hiring for somebody in that role really took somebody with the right attitude. As that's evolved over time, this level of sophistication has matured substantially. So, you know, we are looking to take advantage of technology that's going to help us support those activities. And it's really challenging to find a person who can do all of these functions. So, you know, just as you have a web development software that has evolved, you know, certainly you don't expect someone nowadays to be able to design a website. You know, we don't expect someone to be able to deploy technology or to write a macro or build a database that would be able to support invoice reconciliation. We have software, and certainly the partnership with Delta Data allows us to focus our individuals on working together to provide an outstanding client experience, not necessarily have a really deep technical acumen that uniquely qualifies them to be able to perform functions. So as that expectation continues to proliferate, the expectations for our people is to make sure that they understand the concepts. And so they've gone from being tactical from a day-to-day perspective to being more operators and conductors, and looking at what are the trends that they're seeing, as opposed to working on the myopic details of some of those invoices. And that goes across invoice reconciliation to the way that we interact with our shareholders and with our customers. So as our team gets asked to do more, we look for technology to help support us in a way that makes it more efficient. So that partnership is kind of the tip of the iceberg. So we've experienced that level of efficiency by leveraging Fee Manager. We've leveraged that level of enhancement when looking at the DART program. So historically, we've maintained a lot of the 22C2 oversight in-house and leveraging files from our transfer agent and our intermediary partners. But being able to leverage the 22C2 platform that's been built by Delta Data, that's afforded us an opportunity to be more thoughtful, to look in a little bit deeper, and to have algorithms that, quite candidly, we weren't capable of producing without that engine. So there's been a couple really good case scenarios, some substantial cost savings from an overhead perspective, and also a time spent perspective on those activities in particular. So we've had a huge amount of success with those two in general.
So Mike, you bring up some great points in there, and I think one important theme that I see the partnership between Delta Data and Thornburg has produced is finding that right balance of what knowledge to bake into the tool and how to bring to the surface and expose the high value tasks that your team can focus on. And what I feel like we've produced over the last few years is a team of 6 or 7 that looks like a team of 20, that the software is handling a lot of the remedial stuff and even into some of the more advanced things that requires a lot of time if you're doing it manually, yet we're still focused on improving the team's output to its client, which is, Thornburg Asset Management and its distribution partners. But it's really about how does the overall capabilities benefit without, we're not in the business of replacing jobs or anything like that. It's just finding that right symbiotic balance of what does the tool do and what do we put in front of the very knowledgeable, experienced humans.
And I think you've been in my staff meetings because we have this conversation quite a bit with our folks. We are taking away some of the things that they've done historically. We feel fortunate that we do have some really tenured folks that are accustomed to doing things a certain way. And so we've evolved the way that we do business, and we're asking people to, exactly your point, let's find a way to make an impact to an intermediary in a different way. So, the old adage is you don't necessarily care how the sausage gets made, you just want it to get made. And we've found a way to allow our people to try to create a better client experience. A great example of that is the amount of work that's required for our board of directors to provide transparency on the intermediary relationships that we have for the variety of fee payments. That would take us days, literally days. And it's something that we've been able to, in partnership with Delta Data, having the information that comes in through a mechanism on how 12B1s get paid, or invoices that come to us directly, to be able to bring that information together and to have information that is very close to being ready for the board to consume. We've been able to do that in hours, and so that's been a substantial time savings. Where again, we've asked people without necessarily that skill set to evolve that over time, but really it's just consolidating information. And so that in and of itself is a tedious task. We've eliminated a lot of that, and it's been a great opportunity for our team to be able to focus on other items, and that includes us having more virtual meetings with our intermediary partners, asking the questions, how do we become easier to do business with, allowing us to focus on other parts of what makes Thornburg unique and us spending less time on those manual tasks. So, just in the last 12 months that I've been here, we've seen substantial time savings as we've evolved just the two processes that we described, and then also the board reporting, really great results.
I think one of the eye-opening parts of this relationship for us is we at Delta Data, we feel we're similar to Thornburg in the fact that we try to be the highest quality player in the industry, yet are vastly different than some of our competitors who are literally 100 times our size. So we have to work smarter, we have to be more nimble, and we have to still provide that unique value because we can't be everything to everybody. And I think we kind of get what Thornburg's after about showing your unique value and baking that into our tools. Speaking of that, there's really kind of four things that you've touched on, several of them that we're going to talk about specifically today. How do we improve team collaboration, especially in the dislocated environment that we're working in today? How do we automate both remedial tasks and automate some of the very difficult advanced tasks like invoice processing and complex algorithms for transparency data insights? And then also you just hinted on how do we help support the virtualized nature of today's workplace and support whatever this evolves into over the coming 4 to 6 quarters. So, speaking of team collaboration, you've touched on it briefly. Can you go into a little more depth about how your team's using the centralized tool to help improve the execution and efficiency of your day-to-day?
Absolutely, and we've all struggled a little bit. I won't say everyone, but I think we've received enough feedback that as people moved to a remote work or a distributed work model, certainly the provisioning of access into the different databases and making sure you had those secure connections has been a real challenge. We had a cloud-based drive that we were using that there were some red flags, and we had to shift pretty quickly into an environment that made us feel that things that we knew were a little bit more secure. So having the ability to have access to Deal Manager was really a mechanism that allowed our team to have access to all the information in one place. The nice part about that as well, we're also able to provision that access to our sales organization. So historically, we'd have that information sitting in shared drives, maybe not categorized in the easiest way for people to consume that information, but to have the invoices and to have the contracts all in one place has been a big time saver, not only for our team, but for our distribution partners inside of the walls of Thornburg, to be able to have access to that information, which is something that unfortunately our team would spend a lot of time providing that information. With over 1,500 agreements that we have, certainly that was a challenge. And so the nice part about that as well is, as we continue to train and cross-train, using the different collaboration tools without having to go in and out of different networks or log into the VPN to access a certain subset of information, we've been able to leverage that information in one place, and that certainly has created more efficiency, certainly gives our sales team a lot of confidence that we do have all the information in one place. And certainly when we have those strategic planning meetings with our strategic relationships team, we've got all the information in one place. So we know how much we've paid to the intermediaries. We know any updates that we need to make. So certainly we're leveraging that tool. And it's been a huge efficiency from our perspective, just as we've moved to that virtual environment.
If you think about the types of automation that your team is leveraging from the platform, can you talk a little bit about the lower end remedial stuff that keeps people focused on the higher end tasks? And then, as you had mentioned, there's a couple of higher end algorithmic types of activities that we're able to support that were very time consuming when trying to execute in a manual environment.
Yeah, so our group, again, has taken on a number of tasks and have been able to grow without taking on additional headcount, and that's largely due to the fact that we would spend hours and hours trying to reconcile those invoices. So the components of that, which I think have been a real time saver for us, is adding into the review a tolerance threshold. And so being able to review that information inside of Fee Manager has been a substantial time saver for us. Having that information available to our team at their fingertips, and then allowing people to approve that information as it goes through the chain. So certainly the workflow that's associated with that, having people be able to not rely on email and to have that information streamlined, certainly has been a substantial time saver. And from an audit perspective, not relying on email to demonstrate that approval process has been a huge change for us. And then again, if we can just think about the complexities of 22C2, we've spent way too much time on our side trying to figure out the best way to sniff out some of these more challenging omnibus relationships, building thresholds that would take us hours to try to manipulate to understand certain round trips, or us trying to stay ahead of market timers. Having that dashboard already engineered into a way that a lot of these things have been thought of, and leveraging some of the algorithms that have already been built, and some of the dashboards and information that's already encapsulated into that tool has saved us a ton of time and effort, not having to calibrate those. And again, the challenge is, when you have new people, you may not understand when it breaks. And I think that's been one of the legacy challenges, as I've evolved in my career over time. As you have people that have a certain skill set, a certain acumen, they understand how these processes work, and then you have turnover. So again, you may have one person in particular that's got a really robust understanding of how these user tools that you've developed work, and replacing that person, that human, with the exact same skill set is almost impossible. So taking that out of the equation, even from a hiring perspective, has afforded us the opportunity for, again, us to focus on outcomes as opposed to focus on technical acumen.
That's some interesting insights. One of the points you hit on around invoice processing that I think also is worth talking about is how, when you use a tool, you can start to transcend the month-to-month snapshot of the old process. One of the pieces of feedback I've received from other clients and from you in the past is how you can look at an account CUSIP pair. What did it look like last quarter? Where that's very difficult when you're running in a manual process and you're just looking at June's invoice and you're just looking at a problem that is presenting itself right now. It's hard to one click get out and say, what has this account been doing over the last couple of months? How was it billed previously? And see notes that were taken previously to solve a problem with an account CUSIP pair in the past. Bringing that knowledge, which, to your point about having very high valued personnel, they keep that in their head. And it's just incredibly difficult to replicate that without a very focused tool like Fee Manager. Is that something that you guys are using to help streamline your execution?
Absolutely, and I think that's something that our sales team has really felt has been an add-on to what our team has been able to provide in the past. So, that level of analytic that we didn't have before certainly has given our sales team a lot of confidence that we do have our arms wrapped around this data. And so we've leveraged that in a number of the meetings that we've had. We're actually part of the strategic planning process now, where before, I think we were asked to provide some data, but I think the intel that we have affords us an opportunity to have a seat at the table. And again, we do have a caliber of individual that kind of sits across multiple disciplines. So we bring different information to the table than we would have historically. So again, allowing people to be able to focus on a number of different aspects that are associated with an intermediary gives them unique perspective where historically, we were looked at as an operations team, evolving that mindset and evolving that relationship with the sales team, where we've truly become an integral part to that overall client relationship. So I think this has afforded us an opportunity to understand things at a different level, to ask different questions, to have access to different information, where I think in the past we probably weren't seen as experts or weren't seen to add value in a certain way. The tool is one mechanism that's allowed us that opportunity to feel like we're more part of the sales organization and contributing in a different way. So that's certainly helped from a morale perspective. It's certainly helped from a career path perspective, and we'll continue to leverage that technology to help us add value in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a really succinct way to illustrate where automation and efficiency finds its best footing, whereby you enable a team to bring broader support and more focused expertise, whereby that team is uplifted inside the organization because they're able to support more tasks, have a broader perspective, and then bring it all together and deliver that very focused support that makes them a high value component of the organization. So I think this partnership we've been in has helped us understand, where does the software help y'all achieve that goal of being an integral and ever-growing component of the overall organization, and not viewed as a point solution, quote unquote, they do invoices. So it's something we really look forward to what's next, and hopefully as this partnership grows, we'll continue to take on more support of other roles that your firm's asking your team to take over support of going forward. The last thing that I think we should talk about is, as the tool evolves, can you talk a little bit about how the interaction's been between the two firms, and how you guys are kind of seeding ideas with us around what's next, and how that has gone over the last few years, us learning from you guys about how the next thing to tackle works, and then how the delivery's gone for Thornburg.
That's probably the thing I've been impressed most with about the relationship. So as we referenced, I worked at a top 10 asset manager prior to this with, almost $1 trillion worth of assets, and, making the move to Thornburg, really environment and the relationship and the engagement and the partnership hasn't changed. And so, having worked at, one of those larger institutions, you understand that certainly that size and that level of asset, certainly comes with some benefits and some detriments, certainly from a size and bureaucracy perspective. But what I've been pleasantly surprised by is the level of engagement and the conversations that we're having, and the participation, whether it be in the virtual roundtables or the forums that you've had in the past, certainly welcoming a lot of those conversations. But when we do have new ideas, or we do have new projects, engaging with your team and understanding, one, what are others doing in the industry? Two, can we do something a little bit differently? But that partnership has continued to evolve. And so, as we continue to adopt those products, and we've got, fee manager, deal manager, we've got Dart, we've got Fund Blast, and certainly leveraging you for the technology that helps support the board reporting, and then, having ongoing dialogues about our UCITS platform and supporting it in that way. I've been really impressed with the ability for our teams to work together, to work within inside of the budgets that we have within inside of our organization. So that partnership has continued to evolve, and I've been really pleasantly surprised with how, if I need time to chat with you, Whitfield, certainly you take the time, and really the entire organization, it feels really small, and you make it feel very tight. And so we've appreciated that you've got a substantial amount of expertise that you've amassed. And so, we know that if we bring up topics, or we want to do something, one, you've probably had a client that's wanted to do it, or two, you've been really willing to dig in and understand the details. and try to help us come up with a creative solution. So that relationship has been one of the things I've been most impressed with since I've been here at Thornburg.
Well, I will say that for the last 35 years, Delta Data has followed one formula that's been successful, and that's taking the lead of our clients, working hard to make them look good. And somewhere on the other side, we benefit, and it's served us a long time, and it's going to continue to serve us going forward. I appreciate the kind words. I think we've talked about all the major components that we thought were applicable for the broader audience that are current, I wouldn't say pain points, but they're always on the top of the list of what are you trying to do. It doesn't matter if it's working with your intermediary distribution group or any other operational task. How do you increase the efficiencies, focus people on the high value task, and broaden your support to your organization without significant increases in cost? I think at this time we should open it up to any questions from the group on the phone. And what we'll do is, I know you've been chatting throughout the webinar. If you were wondering where to ask the question, you can put it right in the chat box, and Mike and I will respond in real time.
Hey, we did get one question, Mike, this one's for you. Do you have any examples or thoughts from your team members about how some of the modules within Delta Data have helped them in their productivity, not just from a management perspective?
Yeah, sure. And we talked a little bit about this previously. Yeah. We have a number of those instances that have been deployed, and again, high marks from our team for being able to decommission some of the internal applications that we built that not only take CPU but take oversight and take resources away from our organization. So when we talk about, it's not necessarily one for one. By taking away that, I'll just reference that internal application that we're using for monitoring 22C2. That wasn't just something that saved us time, that allowed our technology organization to let go of all those processes. And granted, some of those files we are ingesting anyway, those underlying transparency files for the purposes of reporting from a sales perspective, but we really had a separate unit that was responsible for aggregating that information and then allowing us to build whatever reports or algorithms that we wanted to extract the information that we were looking for. So that in and of itself ended up being a huge time saver, not only for our team, but then also our IT infrastructure. And then the same thing from a fee manager perspective. So the approval process certainly has streamlined that substantially, having all that information in one place. The team has really appreciated the ability to just go into one specific application, into the suite of Delta products and not necessarily have to go into a shared drive, find an invoice if they have questions about how things are being paid. Having all that information in one place certainly has been a huge time saver for the team.
Perfect, thanks. And then there is one more, and I think you actually have hit on some of this as well. I'm not sure if you have any additional thoughts, but how has the capability of the software broadened since you have been using it? Have you expanded it at all from the start of implementation?
Yeah, and again, kind of dating myself a little bit back to when we, Whitfield and Colt came to our office in Ohio at the time and went through this process and how we were going to build this, and understanding the number of invoices that required us to touch those manually, and just the work that's been done to reduce the number of invoices that have to be touched or aren't able to be reconciled because of the complexity. We've seen that continue to evolve over time, and certainly we've talked about fee manager and how that continues to evolve. And I think the conversations that we've been having with the organization and how we're going to start to use Fund Blast, definitely think there's some opportunities there for us to continue to evolve that and use that in a way that allows us to send a number of our communications out. So I think we continue to work together. We continue to stay involved and engaged in those conversations. And one of the things that I've certainly appreciated is when I came to Thornburg from a top 10 asset manager, I kind of expected the experience to be a little bit different, either from a client service perspective or from an attention perspective. And I've been pleasantly surprised the amount of time, certainly the relationship management team in Whitfield has invested into our relationship. So, again, some of the luxuries of being part of a large asset manager are, certainly the contracts are a little bit bigger and the attention's a little bit different. But I've been very pleasantly surprised with the relationship that I'm accustomed to having with Delta didn't change, even though the size of the asset manager did change.
Hi, Mike, I really appreciate the comment, and I have enjoyed working with you as well. And, Delta Data is a 37-year-old private company, and we have built this company listening to our clients and building long-term relationships with them. And I think that's what's going to take us into the decade ahead, regardless of how we work, where we work, or what we're asked to do. So I can look forward to you guys providing continued guidance on where we need to help y'all and helping you guys shine in front of your own clients. And I genuinely appreciate your time today on this webinar talking about our fee management and our oversight platform, as well as the compliance 22C2 platform that you guys are leveraging to execute your business.
Well, Whitfield, thanks for having me, and appreciate the partnership.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. We appreciate it.